In today's dark story, the home of a distinguished state senator becomes engulfed in flames in the middle of the night. As the family members run for safety, they are picked off one by a group of gunmen. But in the most bizarre twist, the wife and 5-year-old son survive the massacre but are not reunited until 20 years later. The son, with no recollection except for remembering who his mother was, makes this reunion anything but normal. In a typical evening, like so many, a state senator from Texas comes home from work to join his family. The routine generally consisted of relaxation, dinner, homework, family time, and then getting prepared for bed. But this evening would eventually turn into something unimaginable for this family. Tom and his wife Angela had 4 boys, ages 22, 20, 18, and the youngest at 5. They lived in a large house tucked away on a rural piece of land. Shortly after the family retired for the night on this Thursday, around 11 o'clock, everyone was awakened by the heavy smell of smoke. The house was on fire and burning at an excessive rate. Everybody inside the house started yelling to one another to run for the door. Right as each family member made it outside, they were met with a bullet. A group of gunmen were in the driveway waiting, with rifles pointed at the front door. One by one, the couple and 3 of their kids were shot down as they ran out the house. The 5-year-old, Michael, made it out the house last and was spared, but he was eventually taken captive. The perpetrators escaped into the night. Miraculously, Angela survived the gunshot wound, but the rest of the family wasn't so lucky. Investigators searched the property for clues but came up empty-handed. The only evidence they could find were tire marks left in the soft ground. This horrific hit on the family seemed to be planned and executed by professionals. The CSI team came out to the scene of the crime and took tire impressions from the dirt, but would become a daunting task with so few leads. As investigators dug deeper, it seemed like Tom was a no-nonsense type of politician. He had a solid reputation for being Mr. Anti-Corruption and would never make a deal with anyone unless it was cut and dry. He had also recently killed several high-dollar projects due to them not being exactly clean. So, then the thought was, maybe someone lost a large sum of money and took revenge. Investigators chased several leads and even matched tired prints in one of them. But in the end, no leads brought about any promising suspects. And still, the biggest part of the puzzle was, where was young Michael? Tom's wife, Angela, made a full recovery and then made the decision to build back her beautiful home. She wasn't about to let these cold-hearted murderers chase her out of her home. This turned out to be the smartest decision she would make. 2 years turned in 5, and then 8 years turned into 20. Not one lead went anywhere for 20 long years. Angela used her time volunteering to fight domestic crime as a way to cope with her loss. Then, one Sunday afternoon, Angela got a knock on her door. When she opened it, there was a young man standing there. As Angela took a closer look, there was no mistaking who she was looking at. She next said, "Michael." And he responded, "Mom." The two of them embraced each other and held on for minutes, both crying with joy. It had been 20 years since Angela held her son. Michael had lost his recollection on almost everything as a child. But surprisingly, Michael remembered his hometown's name, got a ride in, and then wandered around for 2 days until he found a familiar path that led to his old house. Thankfully, his mother was still there. After they talked for several hours, Angela called the lead detective, who came right over to ask questions. Michael couldn't remember much. However, he didn't even remember the night that the house caught on fire but then went blank. He did remember being captive in a basement under a house but couldn't provide many details. He also remembered a little girl in there captured with him for a short time. The kidnappers always wore ski masks when he saw them. He said that when he was 15, He managed to escape through a door that didn't close all the way when a perpetrator left the room. He was eventually picked up wandering around the streets and then was placed in a group home. By pure luck, he finally remembered his mom and dad, and the town he lived in 20 years ago. When he had the opportunity, he purchased a bus ticket and then hitched a ride the rest of the way. A year later, through therapy, pictures, and his mother's stories, he would eventually remember his brothers, and many other memories of his family life. But the mystery remains: who killed his family? And why? Why can't Michael remember that dreadful night? Many people are still amazed that Angela stayed in her home after the incident and that Michael would eventually find his way back after all these years. One thing is for sure: the bond between a mother and her child can never be broken.